It's finally here. Sunday, January 18th. And I want you to notice something. You didn't click this by accident. You felt the pull, that quiet tension in the background of your life that you can't fully explain, but you can't ignore anymore. Because this isn't just another day. And it's not just a new moon. This is the kind of energetic reset people only recognize in hindsight. The kind you look back on months later and go, oh, that's when everything started to change. If the last few weeks have felt strange, like the world is louder, people are more reactive, and your own mind can't settle, there's a reason. We're in a moment where old systems are cracking, identities are collapsing, and the next version of reality is trying to form. And if you've felt pressure in your chest, if you've felt restless in your body, if you've had that eerie sense that something is approaching, even if you can't prove it, listen to me. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're picking up the signal. And here's the part most people don't understand. When a new moon hits early in the year, it doesn't feel like a normal beginning. It feels like a line in the sand, like something inside you is saying, we're not doing the old version of life anymore. So I need you to take a breath, and I need you to get honest. Because the real question in front of you isn't spiritual, it's personal. Are you actually ready to move forward? Not think about it, not maybe later, not once I feel more confident. Forward. Because doors don't stay open forever. Most people don't miss their next chapter because they're weak. They miss it because they hesitate. They talk themselves out of momentum. They wait for a sign that feels safe. And here's the truth. The sign usually comes after the decision, not before. Stay to the end, because the last minute is the part that makes all of this click. And if this is already hitting you, comment 777. I want to see how many of you are feeling the same pull. Now, imagine you're standing at the edge of something. Behind you is what's familiar. The job you don't love, the relationship you keep excusing, the habits that numb you, the version of you that plays small because it's safe. And in front of you is the unknown. You don't know exactly how it will work. You don't know exactly who you'll become. You just know you can't stay where you are and still respect your own soul. That's what this January 18th energy feels like. It doesn't come as fireworks. It comes as clarity. A quiet, undeniable inner sentence you can't unhear. This isn't your life anymore. And when that clarity arrives, something else arrives with it. Resistance. Because right before you level up, the old patterns show up one last time. Old fear, old doubt, old voices, old stories. Not to punish you, to test you. And if you can recognize the test while it's happening, you don't get dragged back into the old timeline. You step forward anyway. So if you've been feeling like you're on the verge of a breakthrough, but also weirdly emotional, tired, irritable, or uncertain, good. That's the threshold. Now let's go deeper, because this is where January 18th becomes personal. This new moon doesn't just represent new beginnings. It exposes what's been draining you. It highlights what's been misaligned. And for the people who've been rebuilding quietly, healing in silence, carrying pressure nobody saw, this is when the internal shift starts becoming external. And it's going to show up in your life in 3 very specific ways. Here are the 3 ways it usually hits first. Number 1, clarity. Not the kind that feels like a motivational quote. The kind that feels almost uncomfortable. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. On or around January 18th, a lot of you will suddenly understand why certain things had to end. Why that relationship got cold, why that friendship changed, why that door never opened no matter how hard you pushed. You called it loss, but it was protection. You called it failure, but it was redirection. You called it punishment, but it was preparation. And I know that sounds intense, but think about it. How many times did you beg for something that would have destroyed you if you actually got it? This is what a reset does. It doesn't just bless you, it reveals the truth about what doesn't match where you're going. Number 2, release. Because you can't plant new seeds in soil that's still being choked. You can't step into a new chapter while gripping an old identity. So what gets triggered during this window? The things you've avoided. Old resentment, old grief, old shame. The story you keep repeating about who you are and what you're allowed to have. And that's why some people feel emotional for no reason. It's not random. It's your system clearing space. Let me make it real. Some of you are going to be sitting in your car in a parking lot, staring at the steering wheel, feeling that heavy wave hit, and you won't even know why. Some of you are going to wake up at 3 a.m., wide awake, mind racing, and it'll feel like your soul is trying to talk to you while the world is quiet. Some of you are going to look at your life and feel this strange, simple truth. I can't keep doing it like this. That's release. That's the old timeline loosening its grip. Number 3, synchronicity. And yes, I know people overuse that word, but I'm talking about the kind that makes you pause. A song plays at the exact moment you needed it. A stranger says the one sentence that hits your chest. You keep seeing the same message everywhere. An opportunity shows up in a way that's almost too perfectly timed. And the point isn't to obsess over signs. The point is to stay awake enough to recognize guidance when it shows up. Now here's the mistake people make. They get clarity and do nothing. They feel the release and run back to comfort. They see the signs and still wait for someone else to approve their next move. Because clarity without action becomes a new kind of prison. It turns into overthinking. It turns into, I'm working on myself, with zero movement. And then months pass, and they're in the same place, just more aware of how unhappy they are. So let me say it plainly. January 18th is not passive energy. It's an invitation to co-create. And co-creation requires honesty. Because when you talk about alignment, here's what alignment actually means. Your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your deeper truth are moving in the same direction. No inner war, no self-sabotage, no performing a life that doesn't fit. And this window brings one big demand: radical honesty. It will spotlight the places where you've been out of alignment, where you said yes while your whole body was screaming no, where you stayed because it was easier than starting over, where you settled because you were afraid of what you'd have to become if you actually went for more. And listen, this isn't about shame, it's about freedom. But freedom comes with a cost. You may have to disappoint people who benefit from you staying small. You may have to step away from what's comfortable. You may have to stand alone for a little while until your new world finds you. And that's why this is also an initiation into trust. Trust yourself. Trust timing. Trust that the evidence comes after the leap, not before. Now, in the next part, I'm going to explain why this can feel like a death and rebirth phase, emotionally, mentally, even physically, and what to do when it gets intense so you don't sabotage the breakthrough. Now, we get to the part people don't talk about enough. Why this can feel like a death and rebirth, and why that's actually a good sign. Not physical death, a spiritual one. The old identity, the old coping patterns, the old, I guess this is just my life timeline. Because when you start realigning, the false version of you doesn't go quietly. It fights to survive. And it usually fights in 3 places. Emotionally. Old wounds rise up, like they want one final conversation. Grief you thought you were over shows up again. Anger you swallowed for years suddenly has a voice. That doesn't mean you're going backward. It means your system is finally strong enough to release what it couldn't hold safely before. Mentally, beliefs collapse. The stories you've lived inside start dissolving. The story that says, "I'm behind. I missed my chance. I'm not the kind of person who gets to have that." Those thoughts feel real because you've repeated them so long. But during a reset, they get exposed as conditioning, not truth, physically. And yes, for some people it shows up in the body, changes in sleep, waves of energy, feeling wired then tired, tightness in the chest, the sense that your nervous system is recalibrating. Important note, if anything feels medically concerning, always treat it seriously and get help. Your health comes first. But for many people, this recalibration feeling is exactly what happens when your inner world starts shifting faster than your outer world can catch up. Now here's the key. When this phase hits, most people panic and run back to what's familiar. They text the person they promised themselves they were done with. They quit the project the moment it gets real. They talk themselves out of change because the unknown feels like danger. But what if the discomfort isn't a warning sign? What if it's the threshold? Because think about it. Every time you've leveled up in life, there was a moment right before it happened where you felt exposed, uncertain, raw. That's not failure. That's expansion. And this is why I want you to hear this in a very grounded way. You've been preparing for this longer than you realize. Every heartbreak you survived, every time you hit rock bottom and still got up, every season you thought would break you, but didn't. It built capacity, it built resilience, it built the version of you that can actually hold what you've been asking for. Now, some of you are going to notice your intuition getting sharper in this window. You'll know things before you have proof. You'll feel people's energy faster than you used to. You'll sense when something is off without being able to explain it logically. Don't fear that. But don't romanticize it either, because heightened awareness comes with responsibility. Stay grounded, stay humble, stay clear. This isn't about feeling special, it's about being useful. To yourself first, and then to the people you're meant to impact. Now let's bring it back to real life. This new moon energy has a call to action built into it. Not just inner work, outer movement. That thing you keep delaying, that conversation you keep avoiding, that decision you keep pushing off until you feel more ready. This is the window where one aligned step creates momentum. And I don't mean you need to blow up your life overnight. You don't have to quit your job today. You don't have to move across the country tomorrow. But you do need one decisive move. Because here's how life responds in the real world. When you take a step that matches your truth, doors start opening that were invisible when you were stuck. You meet the right person. You find the right resource. You get the opportunity at the exact time you finally stop playing small. Not because you got lucky, because you got aligned. And this is the line that separates people who change their life from people who stay stuck. Willingness, not perfection, not confidence every day. Willingness. Now, I'm going to say something that might sting a little, but it's meant to free you. You are not your past, not what you've done, not what was done to you, not how many times you failed. You are your potential. You are your next decision. And that's why this date matters. Not because the sky is doing something magical for you, but because you finally stop negotiating with fear. In the next part, I'm going to give you a simple, powerful 4-step ritual you can actually use on January 18th to turn this energy into results. without fluff. And I'm also going to tighten the ending so it lands like a movie scene in their mind. On January 18th, you may feel something in your body that's hard to explain, like truth is louder than usual. But here's what we need to be honest about. This energy doesn't disappear just because the calendar flips to January 19th. It sets a tone. It locks a direction. It creates momentum. The seeds you plant in a window like this don't always show results immediately, but they do grow. And later, you'll trace it back and realize, that was the day I stopped drifting. So let's make this practical, real, grounded. If you want this to create results, actual results, you need only 4 things. 1. Get quiet, not scroll less. I mean intentionally unplug. No noise, no opinions, no other people's expectations in your ear, because the clearest voice you'll ever hear is the one you can only hear when everything else goes silent. Ask yourself one question, slowly. What do I actually want? Not what your parents trained you to want. Not what society rewards. Not what keeps other people comfortable. What do you want that makes you feel alive? Write it down. Specific. Not, I want to be happy. What does happy look like on a Tuesday morning? Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? How does your body feel when your life is finally aligned? Clarity is a signal, and life responds to clear signals. 2. Release what blocks the signal. You don't have to do this perfectly. You just have to be real. What drains you? What keeps you small? What keeps you numbing instead of healing? It might be a relationship that costs you peace, a habit that steals your time, a belief you've repeated so long it feels like your identity. Say it out loud if you can. I'm ready to release what no longer fits me, even if I don't know what replaces it yet. That sentence is powerful because it's honest, and honesty is what creates movement. 3. Take one decisive step, not 10 steps, not a full life overhaul. One step that proves you mean what you just wrote, one email, one application, one conversation, one boundary, one appointment, one day of showing up for the project you keep delaying. Because here's the truth. Action is the language life responds to. When you move with intention, reality starts moving with you. 4. Trust the part you can't see. This is the hardest for most people, because trust feels like standing in the dark before the lights turn on. But behind the scenes, timing is always assembling. Connections are always forming. Opportunities are always moving toward you, quietly. And the more aligned you get, the faster you recognize what's meant for you and what's not. Now let me widen the lens because this matters. You are not the only one going through this. A lot of people feel it right now, this collective pressure, this global tension, this sense that something has to change. And when you choose courage over comfort, it does something bigger than you. It gives someone else permission to do the same. That's why your role isn't small, not because you're above anyone, but because you've lived through things that shaped you into someone who can carry more. You've built strength you didn't ask for, and wisdom you earned the hard way. So as January 18th approaches, breathe. Don't let it overwhelm you. Let it clarify you. Honor yourself for what you already survived. For every time you wanted to quit and didn't. For every silent season that hardened you and softened you at the same time. And now, here's the ending I want you to picture. Months from now, maybe even a year from now, you're going to remember this exact window. Not because the world changed overnight like a movie, but because you changed. You're going to look back and realize that day wasn't about the moon. It was about the moment you stopped betraying your own life. The moment you stopped waiting for permission. The moment you took one step with your whole chest. The moment you chose the future over the familiar. So here's the only question left. Will you take the step? And deep down, you already know the answer. If you know someone who needs this right now, share it with them. And if you're committed, type 777 in the comments. So you're not just feeling this, you're choosing it.